Vance Mitchell Gloster had a career as a computer scientist before turning to writing full-time. He worked for several leading technology firms, developing artificial intelligence and encryption software, as well as a massive email system. He is also a musician, having played keyboards on progressive rock albums with the bands Gecko Project and Bomber Goggles, as well as scoring a movie. He lives in Southern California with his wife, Kathy, and their dog, Callie, where the human family members enjoy riding recumbent bicycles.
Good afternoon. In this cartoon here, this is a Get Fuzzy cartoon, Bucky Cat says, "I've identified why none of my previous books have been commercially successful." And he says, they were never published. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is becoming an author in 2025. Of course, the difference between being a writer and an author is someone who has had their book published. Before we get to that, I'll give you a little bit about me, even though she already gave it. I had a career as a software developer, as you heard, and a musical career. This is one of the albums that I was involved in. And I've been writing seriously on and off for 35 years. And in March, my debut novella, Two-Thirds of a God, was self-published. To start with, I'd like to go through a brief history of books in the modern age. This won't take us forever, but it'll give us some perspective about what publishing is like today. This is a 1974 copy of Tales from the White Hart by Arthur C. Clarke. It was in its 10th printing, having been originally published in 1957. It was 148 pages, about 37,000 words. If you're confused about writers always like to talk about the number of words. As a good running average, it's about 250 pages, 250 words per page. So you can take the number of words and divide by 250 to get the number of pages. This book was $1.50 at the time, or $9.60 in 2024 dollars, and its dimensions were 4 1/4 by 7 inches. It's that pocket size. It was intended to be comfortable to wear in the front pocket of a man's pair of trousers. I'm not sure the publishing industry did much of anything to make it comfortable for a woman to read books. I'm not sure they were always much in favor of that. Let's move forward to 2014 and look at another book not too different. This is 221 Baker Street, a bunch of Sherlock Holmes stories. It was 324 pages, 81,000 words, which is more than twice as many words as the Tales from the White Hart. It was 12.99.
Vince, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Apparently the volume is really low, and I think that's your mic, because I don't have anything set here.
Give me 1 second, and I will see what I can do about that.
I just turned my volume up, but I'm thinking I just had the volume too low.
Settings. Oh, I've got. Okay, is this better? That's as loud as my mic goes.
It definitely sounds louder to me. If it isn't, guys, just send me another chat letting me know, and I'll see if there's something I can do from this end.
Okay. Well, very good. This book was $12.99 at the time it came out, or $17.28 in 2024 dollars. Here we go. And its dimensions have gotten a little bit larger than that first book. And finally, this is a book that came out the end of last year. It's 544 pages, 136,000 words, and it's $20.99. Dimensions are 6 by 9, which is the standard size of a paperback book these days. In fact, most of the publishers have completely stopped making any books in the older, smaller formats. They were for quite a while not doing any new books in the smaller formats, but they were still continuing to print the older books in those formats. But most publishers have completely stopped that. So the trends we can see is that books are getting more expensive as time goes on, and books are getting longer with 80,000, 200,000 words, kind of what they are looking for a debut novel. That's about 350 pages to 400 pages in that area. And book dimensions are growing with 6x9, the current standard, a fair amount larger than that original paperback standard. For comparison, you can see the covers of a variety of fairly famous books here. Only one of those books is in that longer 100,000 word area. All the other ones are novella length, less than 40,000 words. And so they would likely have trouble being published in this format today. And so for someone who's looking to publish a book, it is both the worst of times and the best of times. The worst of times, well, there are fewer traditional publishers. There used to be a lot more of them. Some of them have gone out of business. Other ones have been subsumed into larger publishers. These days, the 7 that you can see on the screen are the only publishers, the only large publishers that are doing the traditional publishing. Of course, Amazon is huge, but it's not a traditional publisher. Publishers have narrowed their publishing requirements. So, back in the middle of the 20th century, if the publisher liked your book, it kind of didn't matter. He'd go ahead and put it out. But these days, they have very much refined the requirements of what they ask for in a book. Publishers are much more sensitive to reader fads. For instance, if 15 years ago you had written a dystopian post-apocalyptic novel, it would have had a fairly easy time getting published. But these days, the trend is away from that. It seems like, after the Hunger Games and all these other ones, they have sort of feel like that fad is over. And so you would have a hard time publishing it today. They're much more sensitive to those kinds of trends. And publishers are unable to do as much marketing as they used to do. They used to put a fairly heavy push to try and get your novel seen or your book seen, of whatever kind of book it turns out to be. But they are not able to do as much these days. Publishing has become a more difficult industry to make money in. And publishers used to be willing to give you 3 books was kind of normal, that if they liked your first book, they would let you publish your next 2 before deciding whether to continue with you. But today they're not really willing to do that. If your first book is not successful, they will probably be done with you. Also, most books these days do not make back their advance. The way an advance works is it's actually money they are advancing you on your royalties. And that money has to be paid back out of your royalties before they start sending you any royalty money. So most books do not make enough royalties to pay back that advance. And so for many authors, the advance is the only money they will ever make from their book. But there are many aspects that it is the best of times. Education is widely available inexpensively without getting a pricey Master's of Fine Arts. That used to be the way that everyone did it. They would go to an expensive university and go through a Master of Fine Arts in creative writing program. But these days is author training available everywhere at a variety of different price points. There are great author tools available, computer programs and websites to help you. And there are all kinds of services available without going through a publisher. In the old days, the publishers, all the editors worked for publishers, and all the people who designed book covers worked for publishers. So if you weren't with a publisher, it would be hard to find someone to do that for you. These days, there are lots of freelancers who do this kind of work. And today, you can publish a book for $0. Back in those 20th century, there were people you would pay and they would print you 100 or 1,000 copies of your book, and they would sit in your garage for the rest of your life. These days, you can actually get it out on Amazon, and you can publish it for $0 and publish it elsewhere for $0 as well. And we'll talk about that and talk about what's different about that from really putting in the money to try to make your book a success. And self-published authors are making money. This chart that you can see to the right shows you the amount of royalties that are being paid by Amazon's KDP to self-published authors. In 2022, you can see that they paid out $520 million to self-published authors. And it does not count any of the money that they paid to publishers for their books. So, there are optimistic things for someone who's interested in getting their book out. Well, I divide getting your book published into 3 paths that you can use to publish. One is to use traditional publishing. And here are my thoughts about it. You will probably need an agent in order to get a publishing deal. The agent will give you coaching. If the agent decides to represent your book, they'll tell you things that you need to do to make it attractive to get a publishing deal. And they will also know who within the publishing industry would be interested in your book. And so that you don't waste a lot of time collecting rejection letters from people who are not interested in the kind of book that you've written. Your book needs to be at a high level of polish. I mean, that's true even just to get an agent. You need to have done a lot of refinement on your book, and then you'll probably have to do an additional level of refinement to actually get your publishing deal. They don't do the thing anymore where you would bring in a book that was kind of a clever idea and they would help you turn it into a great book. They just don't do that. Your book needs to be the right length, that exactly right length. Different genres have different requirements, but most of them require it to be about 100,000 words for that debut novel. Your book needs to match current trends. You probably will get an advance, but you will get a low royalty level. On a paperback, the royalty level is typically between 5 and 8% of the cover price of that book. And you, of course, will need to do promotion these days. These days, you're going to be responsible for promoting it on social media and doing all of that. Well, let's say you want to publish for $0. My $0 path, I recommend if you have a book that's really for your friends and family. For instance, if you have written a book that is like a family history or something like that, that really it's going to be just your family that's interested in it. Or, if you are someone who gives seminars and you want a book to sell at your seminars, this can work well for you for that kind of thing. And you can publish for free at Amazon KDP. That's Kindle Direct Publishing is what KDP stands for. And other places. Pretty much everybody has a free program where they will let you do this. Barnes & Noble does, and other book manufacturing companies. All you have to do is upload a PDF with the right dimensions, and you can actually create this in an application like Word or OpenOffice. OpenOffice you can get for free. And there are some tricky requirements that you have to follow for this to work well. But once you have it correctly formatted, you just upload a PDF you can export. And if once you upload that and the cover, you are published. You can go ahead and push a button and your book will be published. In fact, to help you, Amazon has a free program that will create a cover. You take one image that you upload, and then you tell it the title, the author's name, and whatever text you have for the back cover, and they will create a cover for you. Pardon me, the image you see here is a demo cover for my book that I created using this method just to see what it was like. So this does not look like a cover that would kind of compete with professionally created books, but it's not a bad cover. It's certainly serviceable, and it would work if you are not really looking to try and get sales on your book. Also, Amazon has a free program that you can use that will create a file for Kindle, so you can publish on Kindle as well for people who do ebooks. But going this route will not produce a professional product that can compete in the marketplace. So if you're looking to do sales, you have to do other things beyond this. Now, these other things you need to do, the publishing it is still free, but these are other things that will cost you money to make happen. So let's look at that. This is the book cover that I eventually ended up with. I hired an artist and ended up with this. And to my eye, it looks better than that other cover that I created with the free tool. To get ready for preparing your book for sale, there are services and tools that you will probably want to make use of, at least some of them. There are lots of services available. The first one is a writing coach or teacher. Everyone, when they are creating their first book, there are certain rookie mistakes that everybody makes. And working with someone who can work you past those and remove those is an important thing. My recommendation here is that you go to some kind of writing conference and look at all the people who are presenting at the conference. And if there's one of those people that you feel like is really speaking to you in a way that's helpful, you might try to work with them. Most of these people who appear at conferences also do coaching or hold classes or something like that. The other thing I highly recommend is working with a critique group. This is completely free. You join a group and the other people will read chunks of your writing, normally, 10 or 20 pages of your writing per meeting, and they will tell you what they respond well to in it and things that they have a problem with and that they think you ought to correct. In return, you will read their writing and do the same things for them. I've found that working with critique groups is very valuable. One of the more important lessons that happened to me was I was reading someone else's work, thinking, this is terrible. I hate what they've done here. And then it occurred to me that I do the same thing in my writing. So that was a learning moment for me. And there's lots you can learn both by reading what other people do. You can learn new things that you can try in your writing that work. And then these negative things where you learn something not to do. Once you get your book to where it's kind of nearing where you feel it's near ready to publish, one of the things you can do is you can get an editorial assessment. This is something you pay for. You pay an editor, and this is a kind of a light editing, kind of at a very high level. It's less expensive than doing a full edit on your work, but it will tell you which things you are doing well, which things that you're not quite doing well enough to be ready for publication, and maybe some structural elements that you need to address in your book. But you can also go for getting a full developmental edit where they look at a variety of these things in more detail, and that's more expensive. That's something that I did with my book when I was getting ready to publish it. You can also get someone to do line editing. That's where they look at each sentence and try and help you get the sentences to where they really work as well as they can. My development editor did some of that. You will want someone to proofread your work. No matter how many hundreds of times you've read through the entire thing, there are errors that you will leave inside it that'll be completely invisible to you. And a good proofreader will find those. I found one of those in one of my critique groups who was very helpful to me. Then you need someone to format your novel or your book, whatever kind of book it is, where they figure out what font and what size and everything like that. If there's additional, little graphical elements that should be added, and they sort of design the look of the interior of your book, doing formatting. That's something that people do. You also need someone to do your cover, and getting that's an important thing when you're trying to sell. If somebody looks and they don't like your cover, or it does not communicate what your book is about, they're not going to buy it. That's your first salesman for your book, is your book cover. You may want to hire a marketing consultant. And if all this is a little overwhelming to you, what many people do is hire something called a hybrid publisher. A hybrid publisher will bundle some of these different services together. They usually give you an editor and a cover artist and a proofreader. They give you at least those three services, and you pay them a fixed price, and you go through the process of getting your book ready, and they will actually do all the handling of putting it up on Amazon and other places for you. So, some of those are very reputable people. Several of my author friends have gone through hybrid publishers and have been very happy with the results. But like anything, there are people out there who will try to scam you, who are trying to imitate being a hybrid publisher and just take your money and you never get anything. So you do need to watch out for that. Next, let's talk a little bit about tools. There's just 3 tools that I would like to mention that I use. The first is a writing app. And while you can write your book in Word or OpenOffice, something like that, there are now applications that are really designed for writers and who provide lots of features. This is Scrivener, which is the one I use, but there are other ones out there that have many of the same features. As you can see here, there's this little cork board here, and in the way I use it, each one of these items up here is a scene, and then you can kind of look at the flow of your book. Each one of these cards can have a summary that you write for that chapter or scene, or it can have just the opening bit of writing from the chapter. And then you can look at the whole sequence and see how it flows. You can drag and drop them to change the order and do things like that. It makes it much easier for you to kind of get your arms around the process of creating a full novel. The next app that I would like to talk about is an editing app, and this is one that I have used. This is the website AutoCrit. AutoCrit is it's a paid website. They charge $30 a month. You probably don't need it until you are your book you feel is nearing being ready for publication. And this is what I find as the really valuable feature here. You put in your book and choose the genre that your book is in, and then they go through 5 high-level areas and do an analysis of your book, of the quality in each one of these areas. And this was not the final version of my book, but this was nearly the final version. And you can see that out of the 5 areas, I did pretty good in 4 of them, but one of them was a little bit lower, and it allowed me, well, this was after I had already done a bunch of work on this. I was able to drill into that area, and they have a variety of analysis tools within there that will show you exactly what things you need to look at. For instance, if you have too many adjectives or adverbs, they will highlight all those in your manuscript to show you where they are, and then give you a list of, this is the number of times you've used this word and that word, and what's the word you used most often. And they even suggest the maximum number of times you should have used it. So things like this can be very helpful in leveling up your game as far as creating something that looks like a professionally written book. Finally, I'd like to talk about a formatting app. I did the formatting on my book myself using this app called Atticus. And it allows you to go in, and there's a whole list of pre-created formats. And so I just chose the one that I thought best matched my book, and then went in and customized it to make it look the way that I wanted the book to look. One of the really good features I found in this is it will format it both for your print version of your book and for ebooks. And it'll show you what your ebook is going to look like on all the different devices. It'll show you on a couple of different Kindle devices, a couple of different Nook devices, made by Barnes and Noble, the Kobo devices, on an iPad, on an iPhone. So it shows you what your book is going to look like on different devices. And I found that quite useful myself to make sure my book was going to look good everywhere. So that's kind of the whole deal on writing and preparing your book for getting published. The other topic I said I was going to talk about is AI, and it's a mess. So I'd like to tell you just a little bit about kind of how the big AI controversy got started. In Beijing, Tsinghua University, one of their professors used AI to write a Chinese language science fiction novel. And he used 66 prompts with an AI and 3 hours, over the course of 3 hours, and took everything it fed back to them, put it all together, and put it out as a novel. Now, of course, novels in China are shorter than they are in English, but it was among the winners of a science fiction novel competition. So it got a lot of attention at that point, and before you knew it, science fiction magazines were being inundated with AI-generated stories. The thing is that in the standards of a novel in Chinese are very different from the standards of what we expect out of a novel in English. It's a very different whole heritage of what a novel is in the 2 languages. And most of these AI-generated ones were really bad, and the ones that weren't really bad were pretty bad. So all of these science fiction magazines have banned AI. In fact, this is the statement from Asimov's science fiction magazine, one of the largest magazines out there. "We will not consider any submissions written, developed, or assisted by these tools. Attempting to submit these works may result in being banned from submitting works in the future." So it's an uphill battle for using AI to generate your novel. That's something that you're going to have a difficult time doing, and it goes beyond that. because there are legal aspects to it as well. There is exactly one legal ruling about generative AI. And in August 2023, there was a ruling about AI generated art. It was not about prose, but it looks like it's going to be similar to future rulings that'll be on prose. And they ruled that AI generated art cannot be copyrighted. In this particular case, a woman had created a comic book. Now, she had written the story and written all the dialogue and everything, but she used AI to create the art for the comic book. And they came through and said, no, you cannot get a copyright on the art that's AI generated. Only works created by humans can be copyrighted. And that was the advice of the US Copyright and Trademark Office, that really we should only allow copyrights to be awarded based on work that's actually by human beings. The question of how much human contribution is required was left completely open. So we'll have to see what's going to happen there. Meanwhile, Amazon has mandated that you disclose if you have AI generated text, AI generated images, or you used an AI to translate your book, so that they are requiring that you tell them. And if you don't tell them and they figure out you did, they will punish you badly. Amazon, ban you and your book from ever being on Amazon. And I know some people do not like Amazon, but I have to tell you that if you're a writer who wants to be successful, you have to be there. 80% of all ebooks that are sold on Amazon, and more than 50% of print books that are sold on Amazon. So if you're actually going to sell books, you kind of have to be there. So anyway, they've mandated this disclosure and have made this distinction that AI assisted is different. You can use AI to assist you in creating your book, but you have to tell them if you used AI to generate any portion of your book. And reading between the lines, I think what we have here is that they are preparing for a time when you cannot get a copyright if you have used AI to generate these things. And so they're figuring out which books are like that so they can handle them differently than they do copyrighted works. Okay, well, that concludes my prepared comments. Let me open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, so I was wondering when you showed AutoGrid, I was wondering, does that support other languages than English?
I do not know the answer to that question. I don't believe that they do, but you can look, and there are other applications that also do. I know Pro Writing Aid has started doing some similar features, so you might check with them and see what they're doing. But I don't know of any of these apps that support languages other than English. I don't believe they do, but I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have John Neha, I hope. Neha. I hope I'm not really mispronouncing your name. It's N-E-H-E-R.
Yeah,
John, go ahead.
you're close. It's John Neer. Vance, thank
Oh.
you for the presentation. That was really wonderful. Lots of good information there. I've noticed that some of the big publishing houses have their own hybrid publishers that they work with. And I checked with one of these, and they were giving us a price of about $6,000 to do their hybrid publishing. I was just curious what your understanding is of the range of prices and services in the hybrid publishing world.
Yeah, I think most of them start at kind of around $5,000. So that's kind of right in the ballpark I would expect them to be. I have seen prices as high as $50,000, but I think what that is, that end of the spectrum, they provide you a ghostwriter. So what it's for, like someone who's the CEO of a company who wants to put out a book and they don't really want to write it, and so they have some ghostwriter come in and do it. So and pretty much you can find prices anywhere between there, depending upon what services. That's just the thing you have to look at is the list of services. I would think that at $6,000, you probably don't get a lot more than them going ahead and giving you an editor to work with, them giving you a book cover designer, and doing some proofreading, maybe some line editing. Just kind of the normal process. And it may come out under their own imprint, so it may look less like less like a self-published book.
She asks, did you read the Chinese professor's novel? I'm curious what you thought of it. I mean, the AI novel.
I did not read it. Well, of course, I do not read Chinese myself, and I don't know if it's been translated into English. I'm not sure that it would be worth the expense if it's kind of questionable whether you could get a copyright on it.
Vance, appreciate the input. What resources have you used to keep tabs on the trends that you had mentioned before in traditional publishing? And is there something equivalent to that available for non-traditional publishing?
Well, okay, for the publishing industry, there's a Publishers Daily is how all the people in traditional publishing keep track of stuff there. And so they all subscribe to that. A lot of it you can get through societies, like I'm a member of the Science Fiction Writers of America, SWFA, and they will work to kind of keep you up to date on what those are. Like the big thing recently among science fiction people is they've made a change to the contracts that the science fiction magazines are asking people who submit their stories to them to sign, and people are very up in arms about it. But those kind of writers' societies, I think, are probably your best bet on keeping track of those things. They really do keep tabs on all that stuff. Also, there are local writers groups in most cities, and belonging to those is another good way of staying on top of it. And knowing other writers, they will often tell you about something that you didn't know about.
Yeah, I was curious. Your presentation today did not talk about marketing. Do you have kind of like a couple of bullet points for us on the marketing world, particularly for self-published stuff?
Okay, I think marketing is a bigger topic than the one that I took on today, so it's a huge thing. Here are some of the things that are the conventional wisdom about marketing. That the way that you get a lot of people to read your book is by having over 100 reviews of your book on Amazon or Goodreads or some of these sites. If you're still stuck down in the small number of reviews, even if they are predominantly 5-star reviews, it's hard to really get a lot of traction going. And then the conventional wisdom of how you do that, which is a thing that I have not done yet, but I plan on doing, is you give your ebook away for free. There are these different programs that will advertise your book for free. You actually have to pay for them to do that. But all these people, you get a lot of people reading your book for free. They will come back and they will leave reviews. You may not always like the reviews that they give you, but they will give you a bunch of reviews. And then at that point, when you have a large number of reviews, you can start to sort of build on that and advertise. So but marketing is difficult, and there are all kinds of things you can do. Amazon will let you do advertisements. Facebook ads work for some people. You just have to explore all that and figure out what are the best ways to reach your audience. Your book will have a specific audience that it's really intended for, and you have to just figure out the best way to get to that audience.
Super helpful. Thank
What is the expected cost for all of the editors? It can vary greatly. When you're working, okay, if you're getting ready to work with an editor, you can send them. They will typically let you send them some, like 5,000 words. Let's say the first 5,000 words of your story, and they will give you a sample edit where they go through and edit that to kind of show you what you're going to get before you get it. And it's very often somewhere in the range of $1,000 to $2,000 if you're doing a 100,000 word novel. One like mine, I think I paid $850 for a 40,000 word novel. So it's kind of in that kind of range. But it's usually a per word charge that they're going to do. It might be 4 cents a word or 5 cents a word, something like that.
I was wondering if the speaker could name one or more of the companies that market books and achieve the 100 plus reviews.
I do. The ones that advertise your giveaway. Okay, well, let's see. There are literally dozens of these that do this. The biggest one is called BookBub, and it is also the most expensive one. So very often people don't go with BookBub, but they'll go with a bunch of the smaller ones. And you need to be able to have a way of giving your book for free. And how Amazon ties you up is you have to make your book available for free to Kindle Unlimited, and then they allow you in exchange to make your book free for 5 days during a period of 3 months. And so you kind of have to do the thing of doing that, and then you go ahead and advertise on something like BookBub. BookBub, you have to go in and get them to decide they want to put your book as part of this special deal that they put out. And you will get tons of people on it, but it's kind of an expensive thing.
I was still sending out quite a few paper. That was being done. And that's not that long ago, but now I'm back, and gosh, I was accustomed to doing it that way. I just want to know, does anybody do that and expect that anymore? Any major publishers or agents or whatever? Or is it all pretty much email right now?
It's all email, and one of the reasons is that I talked about these tools that authors use, like the autocrit one. They will use a similar tool and put your book through it and use its verdict to decide if they want to even start reading your book. So it's having it in paper, they can't do that. So they really have gotten to where they want an electronic copy of the document that they can run through some programs that sort of reject as any of the ones that they feel like they really would not want to pick up. And so that's we're in an electronic world. There may be some somewhere that still accept typewritten manuscripts, but none I'm familiar with. I don't think any of those big 7 I had on the screen are
Okay.
mine. These things do go in cycles. It'll probably in a few years come back around and people will rediscover it, And the thing is that while a big publisher might not be interested in your book, it might still be able to find an audience if self-published. That it's one of those things where the publishers are playing the percentages. The percentages that their money would better be invested in something else. But it may be that your novel is one that would break through, if you self-published it. So I wouldn't necessarily decide, that their verdict is the final say on your book.
Are sensitive readers still a thing? Or what is it called now? How do you get his service and do publisher agents or anyone?
Okay, sensitivity readers are a thing, and they are important if any of your content is something that someone might have a problem with. I mean, there are many male authors who use female sensitivity readers to read their female characters to see if they're doing something really stupid, where all the women who read it will go, "Oh, I hate this," And some female authors do the same thing for their male characters. If you're getting into areas like an LGBTQ character and you are not from that group, you might want a sensitivity reader to look at that to see if you've stepped in it any place along the line. The services, I'll mention 2 sources of services, and this is one of the services you can get. One is Reedsy, reedsy.com, reedsy.com is a marketplace, and it's a little more expensive typically to find somebody there, but they do a pretty good job of policing it so that people who are not very good at doing these things, they get rid of them from there. So the other site I'll tell you about, which tends to be a little less expensive, but you can also find good people there, is Fiverr with 2 R's, Fiverr.com, and they have all kinds of people to do all kinds of things. You very often can find someone less expensively there, but you should just kind of watch yourself. Sometimes there are people on there who are maybe not as well trained, shall we say, in what they're trying to do. So.
Yes, hi. Thank you for having us here over in New Zealand. I've got a question. We have a couple of very clever children and online today, and I wondered if you had any advice for children who are writing novels aimed at children for getting their work published.
Well, the same advice is the advice is the same. It may be that if you want to actually make it a money-making concern, you probably should work with some kind of a mentor for children. There are writing mentors that are out there for children who can go ahead and help them develop their work and have them go through that same process that I was talking about for an adult author going through, of really learning and improving their craft to create it. Of course, if they want to do it more as an experiment, then, like a serious job, it can be a serious job to really bring a book to publication and make it professional, working with artists and everything like that, if it's a picture book. So there's a lot of hard work involved. But if they just want to do a book, this is the $0 thing that I was talking about. They can go ahead and publish it and buy copies to sell locally to people in their hometown. If they want to do that, that whole range of things from a $0, for a small group to trying to actually make it be a successful, commercially successful book are available to them.
Thank you so much.
What Richard wrote was, do people ever self-publish and then have their books picked up by a major publisher?
Yes, this is the dream of every self-published person, but the answer is no. Okay, it's kind of the book launch when your book is published is kind of like a woman's wedding. It's the big day. It's the day that it's good that they can make everything happen. And if you have self-published your novel, you've already used that up. And so they'd much rather publish some other book that has not already been published. But the good news is that if you have self-published novels, sometimes they are very interested in talking to you about publishing your next book, that would not be in the same series with the book you've already published, but another book or another series that you have, because they can see that you have already come to grips with the realities of publishing your own book, and you will be more understanding of kind of what their needs are. And so that it can work in that way. But no, if you've self-published your book, it's very rare for it to happen, for them to pick it up. One place that it did happen was for the book The Martian. And the guy, he had published it on his blog. He had kind of done it, as a serial where he published all the different parts, and then he kind of did some rewriting and re-put it out there, got feedback from all kinds of people. But that became it went viral, his whole blog. And so at that point, the publishers became interested. But that is so rare you can sort of ignore the possibility of it ever happening. So I'd like to encourage any of you who are interested to check out 2/3 of a God, which is my science fiction cyber thriller novella. It's the story of the very first virtual human, a woman who has her brain scanned, becomes the first virtual human. And yes, this was what Kirkus Reviews had to say about my book. The novel succeeds both as a character study of a digital being and as a techno-thriller. A post-human entity proves to be the most relatable character in this engaging cyber thriller. It is available in paperback, hardback, and for Kindle. It's currently free for Kindle Unlimited users. And you can always find me at vancemitchellgloster.com. So there's my little commercial.
Here's another question. Do you have any advice for publishing a coffee table sized book?
Well, all these things that I talked about publishing for free, those are available. They didn't used to be, originally Amazon and Barnes and Noble, they would only publish, like a traditional book on what they call cream paper, which is the kind that's in a book that's a novel. There's a different kind of paper that's white, not cream, that you publish a coffee table book that has pictures in it and everything like that. Sometimes the layout for that is more difficult. And so there's a program called Adobe InDesign, and that's what people use. That's what the professionals use to format books. And you may end up having to use that to create the book, but you can you can do it just like I was talking about. Go up to Amazon and do that. If you're looking for the traditional publishing route and you want to publish a coffee table book, you need something you need to be famous in some way. So, for instance, if you're someone who used to be a photographer for National Geographic, and you can come to them and say, I'm a National Geographic photographer and I've got all these pictures, I want to do a coffee table book. The publisher is going to be interested. But if you're just Jane whatever, and you don't have that kind of fame, it may be difficult for you unless you have a really compelling pitch for them to be willing to do a coffee table book. So they have to be convinced that you can really help them sell it.
And how much social media following is needed to really sell a book, Vance?
It depends upon the book. It depends, TikTok is very popular it works really well for some books that are popular with Gen Z people. Okay. If your book is not for Gen Z people, my book is not really for Gen Z people or middle-aged people, and they don't care about that. So it's TikTok is not a good venue for me. And so if you got 100,000 users, that is friends or whatever on your social media, that's a pretty good number to start with, and that is kind of the minimum that would make an impression on a publisher.
Okay, thank you.
And I think I did forget to ask if there are any more questions. Are there any more questions?
Well, look at the chat. There are a few there.
Oh, I think I've reached the end of the chat, but if you send it directly to Vance, I wouldn't see it. So,
I see. What does Kindle pay you for unlimited subscribers? Somebody asked.
That's a good
Vance,
question.
do you have any questions on your chat? Oh, shoot.
Well, let me answer this one first. The way that Kindle Unlimited works is they pay you pennies for each page a reader reads, because with the Kindle, they can actually keep track of how many pages that a reader has read of your book, and they pay you a small number of pennies per page read. So that's and they calculate the pages slightly differently than the Kindle actually calculates pages. So,
second question.
Vance, what are the most useful keywords to find other marketers comparable to BookBub?
I would type in free book promo.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Here, let me, this is a good site if you're interested in publishing. It's called Kindlepreneur, and it's the guy really has tons of good stuff here. This is one of his articles, and it's the best sites to promote free Amazon books. So that's a good place to go look.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, Richard asked, what does Kindle pay you for? On unlimited subscribers, I guess.
Yeah, that was the one that I answered when and Kindle Unlimited subscriber downloads your book. They get it for free. They don't have to pay anything. But then they pay a monthly fee to be part of Kindle Unlimited. And then for each page they read in your book, you get a penny or two, something like that. It's not very much money, but so it's how much they've read. So if they read one chapter and never pick it up again, you don't get much. But if they read your book 5 times, you get some money. Yeah, I see one question here, which is from Jasper B. Do you have any advice on print on demand versus printing and a bunch and hoping they get sold? Really, print on demand has gotten so good that I wouldn't do anything else. To make printing a bunch economically viable, you have to print a very large number of them. And so you end up with a garage full of books. And so really with print on demand, that's the way that I would certainly do it. Your cost, if you know you can sell a ton of books, you can make more from them by printing up the number that you can sell and then selling them off yourself. You can actually make more money that way, but it's really hard to do that because everybody goes to Amazon to buy books, and so you may as well use their print-on-demand service. Also, if you, as the author, you will get a cheap, you can have them do print on demand of your book and send them to you at a much cheaper price. So that works. And of course, those sales don't actually count toward your sales. So sometimes people just buy them at the normal price, and then you get whatever your royalty is. And that makes it almost as cheap as if you had gotten the cheap discount. Anyway, you can think about that. I hope I wasn't too confusing there.
Did you have any more that are in your chat? I don't see what's in your chat.
Yeah, that's the only one there. Let's see. Oh, in my chat, there's what are reader fads? And when I talk about reader fads, what reader fads are, things will become temporarily big. There was a real fad for the dystopian fiction for a while that has kind of sloughed off and will probably come back. There was a real fad for LGBTQ characters in books. For a while there, it was very hot to have an LGBTQ main character simply because it had never been done before. So it was new and kind of groundbreaking. That has kind of gone away a little bit. It's one of those things that, and Publishers Daily that I talked about does kind of stay on top of a lot of those fads. So, it's something you could go ahead and research there.
Vance, do you have any thoughts on book tours?
Book tours, I do go out and do things. I do speak. There's a group of authors who do these author, things and I do those. You don't really sell a lot of books at them. If you are looking for the best way to go ahead and sell books, probably other things are a good place to put your efforts. But going out and doing a book tour, going out and talking to people, this group of authors I'm talking about, we have a presentation coming up, where we're going to be talking about how to write fast before November. I know if you know about this, there used to be a thing called NaNoWriMo. Yeah, National Novel Writing Month. The organization kind of went away, but people sometimes still do a lot of writing in November. So we're doing a presentation talking about the best ways to kind of increase the rapidity at which you write. And so we're doing it at a library here in Southern California. And so it's a fun thing to do. You do get to meet people. You don't sell a lot of books. Sticking around.
Okay. Well, I'm going to formally thank you. I know I did that before, but you did a great presentation. Thank you very much. And you can tell how much interest there was by all the questions.